In this video, we're going to be taking a look at working with our brand new Monogram font here in Silhouette Studio Designer Edition. Now, I'm certainly no expert as it comes to the Designer Edition, but I can show you how to work with this font because it does work pretty easy here in the Silhouette Studio Designer Edition. The only catch is when you're working here inside Silhouette Studio is you have to be more mindful of what you're doing to get an exact, precise result, whereas with CorelDRAW and EasyStone, we have some specialized functionality where the process is a bit more automated. But let's just go ahead and dive in here and show you what we're going to do here. We're going to grab our text tool over here. Now I've already set my font to the On the Vine 23. So this is the 2 and 3-inch version. And what we're going to do in this demonstration is we're going to show you kind of two different things. We're going to show you a single stone version, and then we're going to switch it to a multi-stone version so you can use multiple size stones in your monograms. So let's go ahead and grab our text tool here, and what we're going to type out is we're going to type out a lowercase d and an uppercase s and then a lowercase a, and this is what you get. And so what we're going to do here, let's just zoom in a little bit. So the first thing that we really have to do is we have to know what size circles these are. And fortunately here in Silhouette Studio, it does a really easy job for us of converting that for us. Now I do want to point something out before we get too in-depth, is notice the stone spacing here. I want you to just kind of be mindful of that, because when we go to make a small change here, which we're going to do momentarily, we want to kind of keep that stone spacing in mind. So you can see it's nice and uniform throughout the font right now. So what we're going to do first of all is we're going to simply right click on our text, and we're going to choose the Release Compound Path option. And then once we've done that, we're going to select it again, and we're going to right click and choose the Ungroup option. Now, once you've done that, do you see all the individual little boxes around each one of our stones? That's really what we're looking for. You want to make sure you get it to that point right there. Then what we're going to do is we're going to actually turn this into rhinestones, because right now we just have a bunch of circles. So we'll go to our rhinestone tab here, and we're going to choose the stone size that we want to work with. Now, when we created this font, we created it specifically for SS6 stones, and you're going to see why here in a moment we did that once we get into the multi-stone option. Certainly you can choose any one of these stone sizes you like. I'm going to choose the SS6 option because once we've intertwined all the lettering, we're actually going to switch it over to a multi-stone version too. So I just kind of want to show you how this process works. So we're going to go ahead and click on our SS6 stones here. And you may not see a whole lot change here, but now these are SS6 tones. But here's what's interesting. As I pull this apart, let's just make it bigger. You see what happens? You can see nothing has happened. It basically looks the same as it always did, and that's because we don't have a rhinestone effect applied. As soon as I hit radio fill, watch what happens now. Now you can see what's happened here is now all of these stones are basically sitting right on top of one another. So that's something that we have to fix, but it's certainly easy enough to do, because all we need to do is just drag it out and just keep dragging it out until we get our, remember I said earlier we have to kind of be mindful of our stone spacing. So as we draw this out, the more we draw it out, the more and more stone spacing is going to be between stones. So if we get really crazy here and we just keep pulling it out and pulling it out and pulling it out, you can see the actual circle size does not change, but now we have a bigger and bigger and bigger gap. So what we need to do is put that back down. So we're going to go back down to whatever stone spacing you want to use. That's a little bit too close there, obviously. So it's really entirely up to you. You just have to set it visually, you know, how wide you want your stone spacing to be. So let's just say I'm happy with the stone spacing as it sits right now. My circle size I already know is a perfect circle size, so I don't have to concern myself with that. So now the fun part is we have to intertwine these letters. And that's the part that's pretty easy to do. I'm going to just change the color of all the lettering just so it's easier for me to visualize. So we'll go over here to our little paint bucket tool and let's make that orange, for example, and let's make these blue. So we're going to select our D and our A here and we're going to set that to blue. All right, so now it's just a matter of putting these together any which way we like. So we're just going to pick it up, move it around, and see just visually how we want this S to intertwine, or the D rather, to intertwine with the S. And then once we have that set, then we have less control over the A, because the A kind of sort of has to match the placement, the offset distance from the center letter. So we kind of have to make it somewhat similar to what we did over here for the D. And I think that's a pretty good placement. You know, from here on out, it's really up to you, the designer, to decide what you like and what you don't like. So let's just begin. We'll go ahead and zoom into this area nice and tight, and we'll just focus on this area here. So this is where more of the manual process comes into play. So what I would do here is I would move this stone up a little bit. First of all, let's delete this blue one behind, or the orange one. It really doesn't matter for our purpose. And then what we're going to do here is we're just going to, by eye, just nudge those stones so we have similar spacing all the way around. There is no magic tool here that's going to do this part of the job for us here inside Silhouette Studio Designer Edition. So I would be completely lost in here because I'm quite anal, so I'd spend a good deal of time in here futzing with stones. But the reality of it is you really don't need to. What looks like trouble here on the screen, you know, once it's on a shirt, you know, you can see the spacing is not exactly perfect. It's definitely wider than this spacing. And so while it seems obvious here on screen, once it was actually put on a shirt, it wouldn't be quite as obvious. So, you know, you can just kind of play with the stones a little bit and then, you know, take a step back and look and see, you know, do I like this stone here? Or, you know, do I want to nudge it a little bit here, a little bit there, until you get it looking exactly like you want. But that's essentially the whole process. So we'll go ahead and just go ahead and do it, finish it up here, and just show you in real time how much work is involved. So we'll delete the extra stones that we know we're not going to need, and then we'll just play with the stones that we have left over. And so you know, we can make just a couple of minor adjustments. I don't know if we want a stone out here or not. So you just have to play with it and see what you like and what you don't like. I think maybe I'll bump this one out a little bit. And maybe we'll take a look and see what that looks like as far as being intertwined there. And you can see I think that looks pretty good. So now we'll go ahead and grab this section over here with our A. And this section here is a little bit more messy, trying to figure out what's on top. So what we're going to do here is we're going to delete that one. And then we're going to delete this one. And let's see here. We're going to delete this one, and this one, and this one. And so we're going to have this A, I'll tell you what, well, let's go ahead and delete this too. We're going to have this A come down, just like it is right now. And this right here, we're just going to pull it back. And so we'll delete this one, and we'll delete this one. And we'll have to probably delete one of those in the middle there too, because we only have so much room to work with. And then we'll go ahead and just kind of manually add a little bit of spacing between these stones going around. And this stone up here, maybe I'll just move up here. Maybe I'll duplicate a stone. I'm just hitting Control D to select a stone and hit Control D to duplicate one. We'll add an extra stone in there. And then here, of course, we'll resize these a little bit. So it's coming around. And you can see where the stone spacing is really tight there. I might just cheat this one a little bit. I like to have a stone at every intersection, but you know, it doesn't have to be that way. So we could pull this back a little bit like this. In this case, for this particular monogram, I'm going to actually do it all in one color. So we'll just select all these stones and pull them up so they match there. All right, let's take a step back and take a look. And yeah, I think that looks pretty good. So there is our finished monogram. Let's go ahead and make it all one color. And so you can see it looks really nice, all intertwined there, and currently all one stone size. All right, so that looks good. So let me show you, it's kind of the same process if you want to do multiple stone sizes. And one of the reasons that we went ahead and did the base font as says 6 stones is so we can change it into a multi-stone size version quite simple. And this is really, this whole process that we're going to go into now is purely the designer, what you want the finished product to look like. So what we're doing here is really entirely up to you. So what we're going to do is just we're going to select a few stones. Let's go back over here to our rhinestone functions, and we're going to change these out to tens. And we have to decide, well, how far down do we want this to come for tens? And I think for me, I want to come down, you know, there, like I said, it's really up to the designer. Let me actually zoom in here a little bit. Okay, so I think I'm going to have the tens come down to this point. So that would be the first thing that I would do, is set up where I want my tens to go. So I want my tens to come all the way down to here. And let's go ahead and zoom back out a little bit. And I think for me, I'm just going to go through the whole design and set up my tens, and then we'll come back and we'll fix, because right now obviously everything's overlapping. So I'm just going to come in here and figure out where I do want tens and get that process done first. And this is where I was saying if there was a stone right here at the intersection. There isn't in this case. It'd be nice if there was. So let's just go ahead and duplicate it and put one right there at the intersection. It's a little bit easier to work with when there's a stone at every single intersection. So we'll come down, I think we'll come down to there, and then we're going to come up and around to that point right there. So that'll be all tens. And then for my A here, I'm going to make these tens. I'm going to make the intersection 10, and I'm going to keep coming down to right there. So that's going to be where my 10 is going to be. So let's just start over here with our D. And again, I'll zoom in tight here so we can kind of see the process. So the first thing we need to do is set the smaller stone at whatever distance we want. So you can see we're just going to tweak those a little bit. Then what we need to do is we're going to have to delete some stones, because obviously we have some stones that are overlapping. So we're just going to go ahead and delete some of these stones as we go along. And of course we can pan, and then this is very much a manual process. Now the challenge that we have, let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit. The challenge that you have is as we start spacing the stones down here, we don't really know how they're going to wind up here. So we'll go ahead and just I'll just use my arrow keys because it's kind of what I got used to. And we'll delete enough stones that I think will give us the space that we need. But what you'll find is you'll start moving some stones around, and I'm just using my arrow keys, and you'll see you'll have to do a fair bit of moving stones around to make it all uniform. So the first bit is just to get it close, and see, I can see that based on the spacing that I want, we have too many stones in this section. So I'll go ahead and delete one, and now I know roughly, because I've done it so much, in order to get a nice uniform fill, how much adjustment I'm going to have to do. But you're going to have to manually manipulate every single stone, which, you know, isn't such a big deal. There are easier ways of doing things, but you can see you can get the job done too, just by, you know, making a few of these little adjustments. And see here, what I might do is just, you know, you can change the font too. So I might just say, you know what, we'll just bump this out a little bit so it connects with the little curly Q a little bit. We've got some room down here. We can spread these stones apart a little bit. And so this is where, like I said, it would drive me crazy working in this program, because I'm so used to how CorelDRAW works. But you can still create a very nice smooth transition that way. It looks great. So we'll just keep, we'll just move on to the next process here. And the other thing too, as I look at the runtime for this video, we've only spent 15 minutes. So it's really not, it seems like a long time, but we really haven't spent that much time, making these quick little modifications here. So what seems like forever, it's really not. And sometimes you have to remind yourself that when you're to create this all from scratch would definitely take you a lot longer to do all from scratch. So, and I'm just dropping some stones here as I'm going along, so I can figure out how many stones we need first, and then we can kind of make our spacing uniform throughout the design. So we'll go ahead and zoom in here nice and tight, because obviously we have to fix this. So we'll go ahead and do that and drop this one. We'll bump these over a little bit. Let's go ahead and zoom back out. Because of the way this connects, I might just go ahead and make that a 10. We'll zoom out a little bit so you can see the spacing here. We'll use our arrow keys to get it exactly the way I want it. That looks good. Now, this is important. These are little things that I cue in on because, well, I just do. I don't like the way these stones are intersecting here. This is something that would just absolutely drive me batty. So I do like the spacing vertically of those larger stones. I just don't like the way this curly Q is connecting here. So we have to make some choices, and the choice that I'm going to make is I'm going to just say, well, I'm going to make this come down like this a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and add a stone. And so we'll just modify this curly Q a little bit here. So we have the extra stone in there. Okay, so now that's going to come down and around. And then I'm just going to move this down too. So this is going to connect. So, nothing is written in stone. You can make these little changes, and it will, definitely improve the overall look of your design if you just kind of be mindful of how all this is going to connect together and look. And to me, that looks a little bit better than what we started with. So don't be afraid to modify the original configuration if it's going to, if you like a certain way better. So then let's go ahead and move that, and we'll use our arrow keys for this one. Let's zoom in a little bit. We'll drop some stones here. We'll figure out how many we're actually going to need to get the effect that we're looking to get. So you can see it's a pretty low-tech approach to get it perfect. I think we're still going to have to drop one more. So I'm just selecting it and hitting my delete key. And there we go. So now we have the proper number of stones. Get the spacing going the way we want. Same thing here. We have to just grab these stones and shift them over a little bit. Change the way these are all going to connect together and line up. I think that's good just the way it is. So there we go. There is our finished multi-stone version of that Monogram font. Let's go back here and let's zoom in. Still getting used to all these crazy zoom functions here inside Silhouette Studio, but you can see looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that multi-stone version, and now we'd be ready to cut. So with a little bit of practice and a little bit of know-how that I don't have for Designer Edition, you could probably do this a lot quicker. But here we created two versions of this monogram, the single stone version and then the multi-stone version, and we spent about 20 minutes doing it. So pretty straightforward to do the whole process. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and if you have some other Silhouette Studio tips that you could see the process I went through, if you know of some tips that where the process would be easier, certainly share them with me. Then I'll leave a little bit more hair on my head as well for not being so frustrated because I don't know what I'm doing. So anyhow, I hope you enjoy this one, and definitely try out that demo font. We have a demo font for you in the freebie section. So you can test this out and play with it a little bit before you decide, if it's something that you want to add to your design arsenal. Thanks for watching.